Greetings, it is I, Tantus Van Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It is time to continue our discussion on Vampire the Masquerade in the World of Darkness. So, today I'm going to continue talking about some of those psychological things that your vampire is going to deal with. Today I'm going to bring in Rotschrech and Degeneration. But let's talk about Rotschrech. Vampires, they don't fear a lot. They don't because of the way they are. They do fear the end of their existence. There are two major things that plays onto the very fears at the core of a vampire, and that's fire and sunlight. Now, Rotschrech is a state of fear that results from a vampire encountering either something like this or something else that plays on the deep fears within them. Of course, again, commonly, it's going to be fire and sunlight that's going to drive this inner fear on you, but it could be anything your vampire fears. It could be even things like crosses or the wooden stake. If your vampire is relatively new and doesn't know that you shouldn't fear these things, you might recoil in horror from the very nature of wanting to protect your internal being. It requires a courage roll in order to try to prevent yourself from losing to this fear. Normally the difficulty is 6, but there is a chart in the book that talks about different difficulties for different things. So average 6, but should you encounter things differently, like if you're in the middle of a burning building all of a sudden, you're probably going to be higher difficulty to maintain control than if you're, let's say, just running into a campfire all of a sudden. So should you succeed a check for Rotschrech, for every success you have one turn of effectively ignoring the fear effect from this thing you're encountering. So for every success you get, you've one turn of basically being fine. If you're still in the presence of whatever is causing the fear at the end of those turns, you have to make another check again. Should you fail your check, you enter Rotschrech, that's a frenzy-like state driven on fear. You botch, you gain, of course, a derangement, as many of these things do. You can spend a willpower point to gain one action on your turn that you wouldn't be able to otherwise do because of Rotschrech. So if it be something that would be dangerous to you, like attempting to put out a fire, you could overcome your fear with a willpower point and attempt to put it out, so therefore you're no longer in its presence. When you fail and enter into this frenzy-like state, you're effectively fleeing from whatever source you can. You're trying to get away from it as quickly as possible and seek cover. If you are trapped and can't get away from it, you collapse into like a huddled mass of terror that is unable to do anything. Now, the duration of the Rotschrech frenzy state lasts traditionally few minutes after you've either found cover from whatever is causing this fear, or whatever was causing it has stopped or gone away. Once you've gotten to that position where your character is relatively safe, you can attempt to willpower check difficulty 8 to begin to regain control of your character. For every success you have, you effectively reduce the time you are in the frenzy-like state by 10 minutes. The amount of minutes you actually would be in it is going to depend very much so on your storyteller, how well you failed, what kind of difficulty it was in the first place, what you were encountering, that sort of thing that your storyteller will determine about how long you would have been in that state. Now let's talk about Degeneration, because this is actually a really important thing to talk about. Degeneration is the loss of humanity. That's the easiest way of saying it. What happens when you do something that is either consciously or beyond your control, let's say if you were frenzying, that you do something that wreaks upon your conscience, something that is morally dark, or eats away at the very fabric of what your soul would be. It can degenerate your humanity. It depends on how much humanity you have and what kind of action you're actually taking. Small actions aren't going to really work away at you, while maybe murdering someone would do that very sort of degeneration. When you get to that point in time when you have done something horrible that works against your conscience, is a conscious roll, actually. Difficulty 6. Should you succeed, you are fine. You've managed to get away with whatever you did without any problems. Should you fail, you lose both a conscious and a humanity. Should you botch, you lose a conscious humanity and get a derangement. So your storyteller is going to give you a warning when you are doing an action that will affect your humanity, when you are being very deranged. And they will give you that sort of low warning that you are doing something that will cause a conscious roll. There are times, of course, let's say if you're frenzying, where you will do some of these actions out of your control, and you might still have to worry about it. But as long as you are under control, your storyteller will give you some kind of warning. Like, are you really sure you want to do this? This seems like a very horrible act. They might not say directly, you'll lose humanity, but they will give you a warning. The storyteller, this is for you, should not cry wolf. If you say there's something bad about it, have something bad about it. Don't just warn them. They should live up to their actions. Now, the humanity that you have says what kind of actions actually cause you to have to roll. The higher humanity, the more things is. There's a chart in the book, and for whatever your humanity is, and below, because it goes from highest to lowest, you look, and if you do any of those actions from whatever humanity you are or below, you have to worry about a humanity roll. So if you have a very low humanity, you only have to get the ones in the bottom of the chart. Where if you have a very high humanity, you have to worry about everything from where you are and below, which means you have to watch your actions much more. And you have to be careful about what you do, or be ready to roll a lot of humanity rolls. The thing about this is it's going to be your storyteller's discretion. Your storyteller might have you roll conscious checks based more around the story rather than the actual rules here. Maybe you think you're not doing something that would really degenerate yourself, but your storyteller, because of the nature of the story you're telling, will think that it's appropriate. It's going to be based upon what the storyteller feels is right for the story more for the varied rules, and based on the storyteller's own morality. If the storyteller has a certain morality, you're going to have to work around that. Their morality is what's going to be key to what the humanity rolls will be. A storyteller should also, though, be very careful that you're not overloading a lot of these rolls. Set up things that your characters will be able to keep within their straight moral compass that you want them to, especially if they have very high humanities, that you don't cause them to have to worry about these things as much. A lot of roles for this can be very taxing and eventually, degenerating them. It is a fine balance between keeping the humanity high and losing a lot of it. They have to find that balance that they're keeping with the humanity that seems appropriate to the character and appropriate to the story, and getting that and maintaining it, or giving the effort of maintaining something higher than that. That's where some of the great role-playing and storytelling will come about. So that's it for today. I talked about Rotschrech and I talked about Degeneration. Next time I'm going to finish up talking about the systems section, especially these mental systems. I'm going to finish talking about derangements and blood bonds. And that'll finish up that, and we'll move on talking about the next section of the book after that. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows your support for the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.